Hi everyone, welcome to Formas webinar on the annual call for 2019. My name is Åsa Frisk. I'm a senior research officer here at Formas working with this call. And today we will present our 3 sub-calls. We will describe what you need to do to apply for them and have some tips during the day. Meanwhile, you can ask questions and write questions, and after the presentation we will answer them. And with me today we have also Louise.
Hello, my name is Louise Staffas. I am also a senior research officer here at Formas and working with the annual open call together with many other colleagues here at Formas. And as Åsa said and explained, I will read your questions in the chat, and then after the end of Åsa's presentation, I will read them to Åsa and she will answer them.
Yes. So very welcome. Now we will start the presentation, and then now you will only see the slides, and after in the end you will see us again. So Formas, we have the webinar. We're open, and at Formas we have our vision that knowledge creates a sustainable world. This means that we need research to reach this vision, and to reach it, we need you as researchers to apply for Formas. And in Formas annual open call, you as a researcher identifies the research questions we need to answer all these questions. We are here to tell you about this call, and we will tell you who can apply, what you can apply for, and how you can apply. We will also give you some tips during the way, as I said. At Formas, with everything we work with, we have the Sustainable Development Goals as our umbrella. Everything, all the annual call and other calls, we always have different SDGs that we specifically target as. And throughout when you do the application, you will also tick off and say which goals you need to have your research targeted to. So this is a very important step in our work, and also for you to understand. Formas have many assignments, not only to give you research money. We also promote we promote and support basic and applied research. We also have some limited financial support for innovation. We also evaluate, follow up, and develop different strategies. And we also stimulate impact with society and other related stakeholders. We perform evidence-based environmental analysis. We have a special department here doing that. And also we host the Swedish Climate Policy Council. So we're quite an active governmental institute. We have different areas you can apply within. It's very broad. We work within environment, agriculture sciences, and spatial planning. And through these you can have all different areas in humanities, natural sciences, where it's very broad and interdisciplinary. So you're all welcome with different ideas. As you can see, Formas, where we are in the funding landscape, is a bit different to others. As you see here in the picture, we have the annual open call that we will discuss more, and it's mostly curiosity driven. But we are also in the area of need-driven research, as you can see in the blue circle. And in difference to maybe Vinnova, who is more for innovation, we also have some of the innovation in strategic innovation programs, but the annual open call is not an innovation-driven research call. So here we have mostly you as a researcher have your research idea. You have a research question that you want to answer, so it's more curiosity. Formas has quite a lot of funding, around 1.6 billion Swedish crowns, and 41% of this money is actually from our annual open call. So this is a big part of our funding. Otherwise, we have national research program. We have quite a lot of direct funding, and also international calls. We have thematic calls and strategic innovation programs. But here today, we're here to talk about the annual open call, our largest call. And the purpose of this annual open call is to enable all the researchers to formulate their own research questions. And you should base that on societal challenges within Formas areas of responsibility. And also in the annual open call, we welcome all the applications within our areas of responsibility. And we want to have the multi or interdisciplinary applications. They are very encouraged. And as said, we have in Formas for the annual call, we have all research areas, environment, agriculture sciences, and spatial planning. So you can have your research questions within any of these areas. It's a bottom-up process, so it means that you will have your research question, you can work from there on. We have all disciplines, so it's not targeted to any specific disciplines. And it's mostly basic research, but also some applied research. But most of the applications are within basic research. For our annual open call, we have 3 sub-calls. The first one is the research and development projects. Then the second one we have is research and development projects for early career researchers. And the third one is mobility grants for early career researchers. There are different criteria for these three calls, and we will go through them soon. They have the same basic conditions. Some of them are very basic, and these are: you need to have a doctoral degree to be able to apply. When you have the mobility grant, for example, then you can, if you don't have your PhD degree when you apply, at the latest you can send it in October the 1st, but we'll discuss that a little more later. For all other criteria, you need a doctoral degree, but you also need to be administrated by a Swedish university, university college, research institute, or Swedish authority to be able to perform your research. So you cannot have your main administration in any other country. So it should be a Swedish authority, and it should be, we should have confirmed that you can work there. The main applicant can only have one ongoing project as a project leader from any of Formas annual open calls. So if you have already an ongoing project that will last until 2020 and 2020, you're not allowed to apply for this call. But if you have a call or an application that ends in 2019, then you're allowed to apply for the annual call that starts for next year. If you have a targeted call that you have research money from already, you are entitled to apply for the annual call, even if the other one is ongoing. You're not allowed to submit the same proposal with any of the sub-calls as the same main applicant. You can only do that to one of the sub-calls. If you apply to all of them, the proposal will be rejected. So aim at the one that you have. You are okay with all the conditions. You have the PhD from the specific years needed, and so on. So if you start with the first one of the grants for the researchers that are early in the career, called the mobility grants for early career researchers. Here the purpose is to have a starting grant to encourage researchers who have recently been awarded their doctoral degree to visit new research environments. And here there's a special requirements for you to apply. You need to have a doctoral degree within the last 3 years. And for this year, it's at earliest the 1st of January 2016, and you should have it before the 1st of October 2019. So it's okay to apply now in this call, even if you don't have your PhD, but you need to show your PhD degree by the 1st of October to us. You need to send it to us. And by degree, we don't mean the day you defend your thesis, it's the actual diploma that you get. And it's okay if you have a diploma from another country, it doesn't have to be a Swedish university. The project period, when you have the mobility grant, is shared between the home organization and one of the host organizations. So you have actually a home organization here in Sweden, and then you have another one, host organization, either in Sweden or abroad. You can also have several host organizations. So, for example, you can have a home organization maybe at Uppsala University, but then maybe you go to Leeds or to Copenhagen for something. The project period for the mobility grant is between 24 and 48 months. And the project manager, the one who applies for it, is employed by the home organization during the project period. And this home organization will manage all the funds, so you get the salary through that. You can apply for funding for your own salary, indirect costs, and direct cost of premises. You can, however, not apply for anything covering operating cost or for actual equipment. This you need some other finance for. Additional costs are covered according to the Swedish Agency for Government Employees standards for flat rates and such on. So, but it's quite good, as you can be at several places for host organizations. So you can actually expand your knowledge through other research groups, and it's a very, very good opportunity. And also you can have it up to 4 years. If you have more advanced in time, that means you have been a PhD for 2 to 8 years ago, you can apply for the research and development projects for early career researchers. This one was earlier was called Research and Development for Future Leaders, but it has a new name. The criteria is, however, the same, more or less the same. The purpose for this subcall is to enable researchers to address self-identified research needs. And here you don't need to go abroad as you do for other ones. So you need to have a PhD within the 2 to 8 last years, as I said. And for this year, it means that you should have your PhD from the 1st of January 2011 at the earliest and to December 31st, 2017 at the latest. However, for all of these specific time periods, you can always deduct time for if you have been in military service or parental leave or sick leave or such. You can contact us if you need any help in counting this time or such. For this call, you have a maximum of 3 years, 36 months, and also you have a maximum for 3 million Swedish crowns in total for the 3 years. You can apply for less than 1 million 1 year and a bit more another year, but you cannot have an average more than 1 million per year. If you apply for more money than needed, the application will be rejected. So it's very important to keep within the financial budget. Grants for this research and development project also includes more than salary. You can have operating costs, lab costs, peer review, costs for peer review journals, open access, and also you can have depreciation costs for equipment, premises costs. So this call is more for, you have more other costs for your basic research. The maximum amount for allowed equipment and such are 500,000 Swedish crowns for both in total. So here you can also apply for other researchers to be part of the project. You can apply for a PhD student, but the time limit is 3 years for the PhD salary. The research and development projects are quite similar to the research and development project for researchers in the early career. Here, however, you need to have a PhD when applying. You don't have any time limit from 2 to 8 years. So you need to have the your doctoral degree by the latest of the close of the call. Here is the same. You have 3 years as a maximum to apply for, and the maximum for the money is also the same, 3 million Swedish crowns. And it's the same with you can apply for a lot of money for equipment and such. So it's more or less the same requirements except the time for your PhD. Here you can also apply for a PhD salary. You can apply for other people to be part of a project. If you need, for example, you're working with someone in another country, you're allowed to pay them a salary for part of your project. However, this is the administration organization who deals with these errands. So if you get the money, we will distribute to the administration organization, and then there are their rules that apply for how you can use the money. So when you have decided which call you will apply to, and you have a research question that is excellent, and you feel like, okay, I'm ready to start to apply, you can go into Prisma. You're probably familiar with this if you have had other applications at VR or Vinnova or such. And if you go into Prisma, you start up an account. And here, it's good to do this early on. If you haven't done this already, you should start doing it now, so you get familiar and see which procedures and which different areas you need to fill in. So go through it thoroughly, and also if you invite other co-applicants for your project, it's very important that, because they also need to have a Prisma account and fill in their information, and when they filled in all the information, not until they have done that, you can submit your research project in them. So you as a main applicant have the responsibility to see that they have done that, so you can submit your application in them. So this is you can have several co-applicants, but the same is for the co-applicants as for the main applicants. They also need to be employed at the Swedish university or a university college, but they also need to have a PhD. But if you have someone working with you in the project that are not in Sweden, you can have them as someone working with your research project. They can, however, not have a Prisma account, but you can describe them in the project description, what the need for them in your research and what the knowledge is that they will give to the project. So when you have submitted your application, you have a wonderful research question, you need something that you really want to look into, you have submitted your research project, we get it, and how do we process this? We get over 1,200 applications for the annual call. You as an applicant, you will decide which panel you want to put your application in. So you have 3 choices, and the 10 different ones are the one you see here in the picture. So you have to categorize 3 of them that you need to send in your application to. So you have number 1, number 2, and number 3 that you have to choose from. We can however, decide to change to another panel if we feel that it's suited. But most of the times you will get one of the 3 that you apply for. And here you try to find the panel that you're mostly best suited for your application. And you can go into our webpage and see how they are described and see how they fit your project. We do these 10 panels to process the 1,200 applications. So they are divided through these 10 groups, and each of these groups have an evaluation panel, a review panel that are coordinated by us as senior research officers. So we work with them, we try to find them, we already have a basic group, and then we find some new researchers and some some people that have been there for a while you can only be there for 4 to 5 years, so then we have to find new research people. These people will evaluate your applications. But all of these groups are also inspired by the SDGs. So you can see that the SDGs are going as a red thread through our all different themes. So here you have to think over a bit which group that suits you the best. So who are these panel members that will review your application? In each of these 10 groups, there are 15 to 22 panel members, and we have, including them, we also have a chair and a vice chair. They are like 75% of the active research are active researchers. The rest are stakeholders that they have a PhD, but they're now maybe working in a company or authority. But they have the experience of the researchers, but they have also the societal value of different research questions as they work more in the stakeholder area. So all the panel members evaluate the scientific quality and societal relevance of your research project. They have an expertise required because they need to read quite a lot of different applications. So we need them to understand both natural sciences, so social sciences. So we have quite a broad group. And we also have researchers that are experienced in the health and engineering areas. They can read and evaluate disciplinary, trans and interdisciplinary research. And sometimes we also need, if we don't have the competence in the group, we need to have external reviewers to read the applications. So they are included as a supplement to the panel. And the evaluation criteria that you have listed also on the web page are five different criteria, and they are evaluated equally. So it's not that this one is more important than the other. So they are in the scientific quality, we have the research question, we have the method and performance, the scientific competence. And for the societal relevance, we have the societal value of a research question. We have the communications with stakeholders and users. So it's very, very important that you concentrate and address these criteria clearly, because they are as important as the other. And remember also to put all the information in the application. Everything you need to say should be in there, because the reviews are made solely on the information there. So you cannot have something between the lines. You really need to be clear and put out the message. So the panel members, when they get the applications, they will read through them in the group, and they will indicate the level of competence for each of the application in the panel. They will also say if they have any conflict of interest, exactly. So if they do, they're not allowed to review your application. There are 4 reviewers per applications, and after all the assessments are done, we at Formas will compile them, and we have a ranking list, and then we will meet with the panel and discuss and rank the different applications. And we're here, and when we have the meeting, we will also decide which of the application we will discuss at the meeting, because we can't take all of them to the meeting. And this is quite a big process, and it's a very important one. We have a lot of discussions during this. So this is a small time plan of how we work. So now we have the call open between February and April. We close on the 4th of April. And after that, we will look through all the applications, see if you fulfilled all the requirements, you haven't applied for too much money, that you're in the right panel group and such. And after that, we will give all the panel members the applications after they have their competence and conflict of interest decided. And then during the summer, June to September, the panel will read and assess the applications. And we will work with that internally quite a lot in September, October. We will also have the meeting in the late September, early October, the panel meetings. So we will have 10 different ones, And then we have to compile all the decisions. And in November, we have the Formas Scientific Council that makes a decision on the 20th of November. And the same day or the day after, we will actually give you the announcement on the web, which projects are funded. So often you feel like when you're a researcher, it takes quite a long time to get your answer, but it's a long process. And being on the other side here now, you understand why it actually takes a long time. And here are some examples of success rates for the last 2 years for the annual open call. As you can see, for the research and development projects, we have more or less the same success rate during 2017 to 18. It's around 17%. You can see how many applied and how many got funded. The same is for the research and development for early career researchers. We have the same success rate, 17%. However, for the mobility grants, we have a little bit higher success rate. It was 18 in 2017 and 20 for 2018. So it's quite, it's more or less solid, but it's a little bit higher during the mobility grant, or for the mobility grant. So we have some tips during the way. Of course, you need to have a great research question. It seems maybe like a simple tip, but it's really, you really have to focus on your research question and see that through your application you fulfill how you will reach this goal and how you, what research you need to do, and point out that the group you're working with have all the experience needed. And first and secondly, also start writing the application in time and go through Prisma and see all the things needed to submit your application. And especially if you have the mobility grant, because there you also need extra documentation from the host universities, you need invitation letters and such. And carefully read the requirements in the call text. We don't have anything hidden, so it says all there needed. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to email us. And all the criteria must be addressed in the application. So you have the 5 different research and societal value criteria. You really need to address the research question and the societal value, for example, as much as the others. The evaluation will be based solely on everything in the application, so be very structured and clear. The panel members have maybe 30 applications to read through per person, so you really need to be clear, try to point out what you're aiming at and how you fulfill this. So the important dates, we are already open. We open on the 26th of February. We will close the call on the 4th of April at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And you will know your decision on the 20th of November 2019. And we are here and ready to ask you a question. We also have a chat during, which were the dates now again?
Last week.
The last 2 days before the call closes, on the 3rd and 4th of April, or the whole week of the last week of the call, we have a chat. So you're very, very welcome to come here, to chat in and ask questions or phone us. We have on the webpage, we have the times for that. We can put it up here afterwards as well. And that's more or less it. So if you have any questions, we are welcome to answer them. And we see that we have some coming up here. So Louise and I will go through them, some of them, and answer them. And if your question has not been answered here during the day, you can also email us. Especially if you have any specific one for maybe your case, if you want to go for mobility grant somewhere and you have very specific questions, we can answer them by email. So, Louise, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do. The first one is the popular description must be written in Swedish, it says. Yeah. But if you don't speak any Swedish,
how do you do?
How do you do?
Yes.
Is there a way to get around that?
Often you ask a colleague to help you. I often had that when I was a PhD student or researchers who had a lot of international colleagues. They came to me and then I could help them. So please ask another Swedish colleague to help you read that.
It's not a long text.
No,
so
it's not the long text. It's not the one you should aim at. So if you have a really good research question and everything, it's good. Of course, good that you have to have it very thoroughly written, the Swedish one, but it's not the aim of the whole research project.
And then also, how can you discuss a little bit the possible overlap between a proposal to Formas and a proposal that has been already submitted to another Formas call, international call, or another funder, for example, the Research Council?
Okay. If they're similar in the text,
yes.
I guess. So you're not allowed to. If you send in a text for the open call, you can send in another one to a targeted call, for example. You can send in more or less the same proposal, but if you get both funded, you have to choose one of them. If you have a project you want to submit both to Formas and to VR, for example, you can send in the same to VR and to Formas, and then if you get both, you have to decide which one you will say yes to. If the only thing you can't do is to send in the same application to the annual calls, 3 sub-calls. You can only choose one you can submit to.
And then there's a question regarding the early career researchers. Do you have to have a host organization for the early career research call?
No, only for the mobility grants, not for the other one. It's the same as the project, the big one. So you don't need any. You only need to have one at the Swedish university.
And one of our listeners would like to hear again about the conditions regarding financing international partners. Is the short way to do that?
Yes, I can repeat that. So if you want to, many people want to have international researcher in their project. This is not allowed in the mobility grant, however, because you can only get salary for yourself. You can't have any co-applicants or other people for salaries. But if for the other two, you can, for example, if you have someone you work with in Iceland, for example, and you want to have them in your project, but you can't have them as a co-applicant because a co-applicant needs to be at a Swedish university or and have a PhD. But if they're not, you can have them as a co-worker in the project. So if you have this person in Iceland, you describe them in your project and say that this person will do these analyses or help me in the field with this or do interviews with me. You describe that in the project and say how important it is for your project, and then you can list the salary for this in your budget. But it's your administration organization that decides the rules for if you can pay them salary or not. We are totally okay with it, but you have to ask if you're at Uppsala University, for example, you have to ask them if it's okay. Normally it is, but so you get the money from us, and you can use the money to pay salaries for people in other countries. It's no problem with that.
So you mean that Formas cannot overrule any local rules of the universities?
Exactly.
Okay.
So if Uppsala University said it's okay for us.
And could you please explain also a little bit more why we have the 2 calls for either project calls or young career, since the conditions are basically the same except for the time since PhD?
Exactly. It's because the 3 sub-calls are for different stages in your research career. So the early one, mobility grant, is for you that are just finished. The other ones are for you that want to start up your research career, and the third one is for the ones that already have been a researcher for a while or used to have their PhD. But in order to have these ones different, you have different competition. So if you're younger researchers, you only compete with the ones that have a PhD from the last 8 years, while you have to compete with the professors and such. So it's for you to have another chance.
And is it possible to apply for a project for funding for oneself as an early career researcher, but then if before the project starts, this person gets a professorship, can they transform it into a project call and to finance a PhD student?
If you started up with a, you have to repeat the question again.
Yes. Okay. The question is literally, if I apply for funding for myself for the early career researchers, can I later transform it in funding for a PhD student in case I get a professor tenure position before the project starts?
If you do any changes for your grant, you have to write to us, the ones that are responsible for the panel group you have your money in. You have to write to us and ask for permission if there are for these changes. So it's hard to say. It's more a case to case. So I have to look into that more in detail. But often, if you do any big changes, you have to phone us and ask about them.
I guess that this is an example where it's better to actually address us specifically, and since it's on a case-to-case
exactly
evaluation.
Yeah.
Yes.
But of course, things change throughout the time, and we can also adapt to some of these changes.
And how are all these 1,200 applications distributed between the 10 groups? And does each group have the same budget?
They are distributed through how you sign up for the groups, because you rank 3 of them. You have to choose 3 of them yourself, 1, 2, 3, and then you get the first one first. So automatically they are distributed to us through the group you choose. So if 200 choose group 2, 200 will go there. And the budget is evenly distributed through the pressure through each group. So, but the success rate for each group will be the same.
So you mean the budget is distributed proportionally to the... Okay.
Exactly.
Yes. So you say that Formas does not grant funding for annual salary increases.
Yes.
How can this cost then be covered?
This is because Formas doesn't want to act as someone who are the part that you should promote salary increases. So it's up to the institution, but we just don't. It's a bit tricky. We don't put in budget for these. So actually, it's a bit tricky.
So that's an example of a question that needs to be addressed.
Yes, exactly.
Sent in specifically, and we will deal with that.
Yes.
And what is the minimum amount of personal salary you can apply for? For example, if you are already funded to some extent by a different grant.
Exactly. You should always be careful. If you, for example, are the main applicant for one project and then maybe a co-applicant for another, you can never have the total salary of more than 100% from. And for this question, you also need to think of how much do you put into the project? Do you put in 20% of the time? Are you maybe the one who are the main project leader? Then you have to put in 20%, and then it's 20% of your salary. So you don't have to put 100% for your salary in these projects.
So is there a minimum?
There's no minimum.
No. So about the mobility grant, are there any restrictions regarding country where the PhD diploma has been granted, or can a PhD from international university apply for the mobility grant?
For the mobility grant and for the others, there's no limit or restriction to countries. You can have your PhD from internationally, but you need to have your PhD diploma degree. It's not, many people think it's the actual date of your dissertation, but it's not. It's actually when you have your diploma certificate and it says that you get it on the 21st of November, for example. That's the date when you have your...
But can you...
You can have it from any other country, as I said.
Yes. But I guess that your departing the organization where you belong when you apply needs to be a Swedish?
No, if you
or can you apply as a French
you can
PhD?
if you want to do a mobility grant in Sweden, you can sit in France and apply for it. You don't have to be working at a Swedish university already.
Okay, good. So, if you qualify for the early career research grant, is there any reason to choose the regular research grant instead? What are the differences other than the qualification criteria?
For these two, you have different competitions, because if you apply for the one that are not restricted in time, you have maybe your competition with the professors been working for 30 years, while there are exactly for the ones that have 2 to 8 years for fewer. So the evaluation panel you have much more competition. If the evaluation panel sits there and look through your applications, then you have to be competing with someone who's maybe been working for 20 to 30 years. Well, in the other one, it's restricted. So for someone who's younger in the research career.
And yes. And for the co-applicant's PhD degree, do they have to have it by the application deadline or by the time of the decision?
They need to have it by the time of the application deadline.
Okay. It's important to show the societal relevance in order to get Formas funding.
Yes.
Could you give us a few examples of such societal relevance?
Yeah, it can be quite different from different projects, of course. But say, for example, that if you have a project and you're working maybe in interviewing people maybe for the fires that happened last summer, maybe interviewing someone, then you need to show that the research you get through this will be used in society. You can see that you have people that are stakeholders that you will have involved in your project, and you will be able to distribute this through channels. You will teach other people about this. You will have workshops. You will transform your knowledge, so it's not only connected within the research community. It should be out for everyone. And it's not only to write a popular science paper, which is also important, but you need to show that you can actually have it directed into the stakeholder community.
That sounds quite a lot as applied research, but do you mean that also in a consequence of the research?
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Is it required to have co-applicants, or can just one single applicant?
You can be a single applicant.
Okay.
You don't need to have co-applicants.
Then we have the question again about the early career versus the research and development call, and I think we have just answered that. Yes. So if someone missed on that, then please address or mail us.
Yeah, the webinar will also be available afterwards, so in a few days.
Are the proposals evaluated anonymously?
No, they are not.
Would you say that it's detrimental to an application if your co-applicants are previous advisors, or if the project applied for intends to use the infrastructure where you previously worked?
It's always good to show that you're, as a researcher, especially younger in your research career, can show independence. So it's always good to show that you can work with other people than maybe the ones you had your PhD supervisor at. But of course, maybe this is a very specific environment where they are the top researchers in. But I would say it's more beneficial to show that you can work somewhere else. But you can, of course, have that as a part, but you don't have that as a main.
And if the area of science that this specific question comes from, then motivated.
Exactly. Motivation is always needed.
The guidelines for the research grant are very specific about the character limit of each section, but they don't mention the maximum page length or number of figures. Can you clarify this? Is there only a limit on the text length and not the number of figures?
Exactly. We have an appendix, where you put in your figures and such. There you have a limitation of the PDF size, which is 4 megabytes. So that's the limit. So you can have, if you need to have several figures, that's okay.
Mm-hmm. And then again, a question regarding salary, and that is it true then that no partner in the project can be have salaries exceeding 100% in total?
Exactly.
Is that for any staff working in the project?
Yes.
And someone wants to have more information about research data availability statement. What is recommended to do in the proposal? And this is mostly related to mobility grants.
Research data availability. I think I have to look through this a bit more thoroughly, so I can, if this person writes to me, I can write back and answer.
Good.
We can also post some of the question and answers afterwards, so you can be able to read through them, so you don't have to sit and write everything now.
So for the mobility grant, if you said that the latest date to provide or to have a PhD diploma is October 1st.
Yes.
So then you don't have to submit the diploma already together with the application.
Exactly. You state there when you will have in the application you can state when you will have your PhD degree, more or less, and then you submit it to us before the 1st of October. And that's the absolute deadline.
Is it possible to have, for a young researcher grant, a simultaneous funding from both the Research Council and Formas if your total salary does not exceed 100%?
Yes, if it's not the same project.
And for the mobility grant, is there an invitation or another kind of certification from the host organization needed?
Yeah, for the mobility grants, yes.
Is it possible to transform a mobility grant to an early career grant?
No, not what I know of. No.
So that was all the questions on the list that have been submitted.
Okay, thank you. I think a lot of them we have some questions that often repeatedly come up, and that's especially the ones that people want to invite other people from other countries, and we have gone through that 2 times already. And people often ask if it's you need a PhD from Sweden or from another country, which is also taken up here, and you don't need to have a Swedish PhD, you can have a PhD from other countries. And so I don't think there are any other specific questions, or do we have any? We've gone through quite a lot of them.
Yes, and there is always the FAQ section on our website.
Exactly, and also we have the web and chat during the last week of the call. We will have specific times where we'll sit and answer you. You can chat with us, we can answer your questions, and you can also phone us on specific times as well. So go into the chat and into the web, you can look up when the chat is. And if you have any questions meanwhile, you're welcome to phone us or email us. And hopefully you will have a nice research question and a nice application sent in to us. We will be very happy to see you try to solve some of our visions on a more sustainable Earth and how we can create that through your research. Do you have anything to put?
No, yep. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you. I hope we could help you a bit through the way. All the best. Have a nice day.